Hi, welcome to One Eye on the Page. I'm Scott, and I love romance when it comes to TV and movies and real life. But do I love romance when it comes to books? I don't know. I don't mind when romance is part of a book. A couple meets and falls in love, and it is part of the story along with whatever the actual book is about. I like that plenty fine. But do I like romance books in which romance itself is the purpose of the book? Again, I don't know. So, what I decided to do was I planned on reading 5 romance novels. These 5 romance novels that I picked, some with a purpose, this one, some because it reminded me of a movie that I liked, this one just pure random. This one I picked mainly because of the trope. That was a mistake on my part. And this one because it was popular. So I picked these 5 books. I plan to read all of them and then do this, a video about the 5 romance novels that I read. Except that I didn't do that. Or I did do that, but I also read 9 additional romance novels. I read a total of 14 romance novels. Again, did not intend to do this. I read one of them in May, and then I read 12 of them while I was on vacation. And then I read the last one of the ones that I had originally planned to read yesterday. So I'm going to now talk to you about the five, oops, 14 romance novels that I read and give you my point of view about romance books based on my limited experience and about these 14 books in particular. The first book I read was Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrun. I have talked about it before in vlogs. I also read a previous book by Alison Cochrun, The Charm Offensive, which is a very good book in and of itself. As I have talked about this book before, I will just cover it a little bit. If you have not seen my vlogs before, it's also in there. But it's about a girl, Ellie, who has a magical Christmas with another woman that she meets. They get along extremely well, but something happens, and the next day they just leave each other in a sense. Uh, then Ellie loses her job and she's working at a coffee shop and she meets the landlord of the coffee shop, or she has met him before, but they talk to each other and he proposes that they have a fake marriage because he needs to be married in order to inherit his grandfather's money. She agrees to this, and one of the things that she has to do is go to his family's cabin for Christmas. She doesn't really have a great relationship with her mother. Parental issues is a big thing in these romance books also. And she goes, she meets his family, and then she meets his sister, who is Jack, for Jacqueline, the woman that she was with the previous Christmas. I said previously that this could basically be a Hallmark Christmas movie. I have to correct that a little bit. I would say it more likely be a Lifetime Christmas movie. One, because there's a lesbian romance in here, and Hallmark doesn't really do that. They have moved forward a little bit with gay romances, but not so much with lesbian romances. If there are lesbians mentioned in a Hallmark movie, they're side characters. So, but it is a Christmas movie basically, except there's some sexual content in here, and there are a lot of the same hijinks that you would see in a Christmas movie, but there's also anxiety and self-doubt and familial relations and combat within those relations. It's something that Alison Cochrun does very well. uh, the whole mental health issue, she has brought that up in both books that she's written that I've read, and she does an excellent job in there. She is able to write what is hokey and make it palatable. And not only palatable, but delicious, I guess I would say. It's just a very well written book. I said when I was going over my review in the vlog that I probably give it a 4.5, possibly a 4.75. I would probably lean more towards 4.75, but for the purposes of the romance novels, I'm going to say that this is a 5 star. Uh, Even if you're not a romance fan, I think this is a great book. I suggest you read it during Christmas or any time of the year, honestly. This was the best book that I probably could have started this series with, although it also set me up for disappointment later when I got the later books. The next book I did read was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Nora and Charlie Nora and Charlie aren't enemies. It isn't enemies to lovers. They have some awkward interactions. In a coincidence, which is something I think you'll need to get used to with Emily Henry novels, she goes to a small town that is the setting of one of the authors that she is an agent for, as in one of her books. Uh, Basically forced there by her sister Libby. And who is there but Charlie, who is an editor. The author, who doesn't really make much of a presence in the book except as a device. She is the reason that they first met and they first didn't get along. But Charlie is there helping with his family's bookstore that is in this town. It's and I'm going to try not to use this word very much, but it is a hokey premise. But I think Emily Henry does a very good job of pushing into that hokiness and accepting it, saying, yes, this is what it is. We're moving forward with it. I like both Charlie and Nora. I like Charlie better after having read other romance male characters because Charlie seems real, whereas some of the other ones that I've run into don't necessarily do so. There is, of course, family trauma. Nora and Libby's mother died, and that was tragic for them. Nora basically acts as Libby's mother as well as her older sister. Libby, I think if there's anything I don't like about this novel, it's Libby's actions in it. I notice in many of the romance novels that I read, but they particularly stand out in Emily Henry books because one, I think the books are written well, so it's kind of like a glaring, bad spot there. But people do stuff for really no reason. If people just talk to each other, I mean, yeah, it wouldn't have helped the plot perhaps, but it would have made sense. And Libby doesn't talk to her sister, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. So that is a rough spot in an otherwise excellent book. I think of all the romance books I read, like Nora and Charlie's relationship seems the most real, perhaps, to me. I thought it was very good. I think that Emily Henry, much like later day Stephen King, tends to write better when she's writing about writers. I read 4 books by Emily Henry, and 3 of them involve writers, and one of them did not. I liked 3 of them, and I didn't particularly like one of them. So, but I'm going to give Book Lovers 4.5 stars. I think it's a soft 4.5 stars. It could be like 4.25 stars. Mainly because the whole Libby stuff. If Libby had just talked to her sister, 4.5 stars, no problem. Maybe not coming close to Kiss Her Once for me, but up there. Then I started The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, but I did not finish The Hating Game by Sally Thorne before I finished other books. I did finish it, but not before. So what I did finish was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, because I downloaded it on Kindle because I was struggling with The Hating Game. I mentioned in my vlog that I would pause many times during reading The Hating Game. And so I would switch to another book. That is involves 2 characters, Poppy and Alex, who are best friends. They've been best friends since college. They go on vacation quite often, usually once a year. Poppy is a travel writer. Alex is a teacher. Alex is a male, just to make that clear. Emily Henry generally only writes what I've seen heterosexual romances. She does have a lesbian couple in one of her books, but they're side characters. So Poppy and Alex, they aren't talking. They haven't been talking really for the last 2 years, except for sending "Happy birthday, thank you, Happy birthday, thank you." Something happened 2 years before that made them stop talking. Poppy, who is not happy, I believe she talks to her therapist, and therapist asks, "Well, when was the last time you were happy?" It was when she was friends with Alex. So she invites Alex on a vacation, and they also go to his brother's wedding. And it's basically the story of that vacation while also doing flashbacks to previous vacations. It's not, I feel, as good as Book Lovers. The tropes are there, and I think the tropes don't work as well as in Book Lovers or in Kiss Her Once for me. I don't know that the romance is one where I see, oh yeah, they'll definitely be together. Whereas in Book Lovers, yes, I could see Charlie and Nora staying together. In the next book, I could see them staying together. In Happy Place, well, we'll talk about that later. But I don't know that this one works as a couple. I mean, they are opposites, and opposites often work. I just don't know that they do in this case. It wasn't a bad novel, but I think going from Book Lovers to this one was a step down. I'm giving this a 4 stars. It's just but I just didn't buy the romance as well. And also, I notice that many, or okay, I've read 4 Emily Henry books. The 2 books that I give a little bit here and much lower score kind of involve the woman giving up a little bit on her life, but it's okay because she didn't really want that life anyway. And I don't know, that seemed too much like a Lifetime movie thing there, and that's one of the tropes in Lifetime movies that I don't like. So I'm still struggling through the hating game. So then I read The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther, which is one of the books that I originally planned to read. It is about Meredith. She's 18. She has a twin sister who died the previous year. They are on vacation at her grandparents' place, where her cousin is also getting married. She meets the brother of her cousin's fiance. He's 19. He goes by Wit. Uh, he has a normal name, but uh, it's not given to us for Taylor Swift related reasons, which it could either be super hokey or, perfectly fine. I think for teenage love, it's perfectly fine. It works. This was sweet. I don't really know what else to say in there. There is, if it's something you're concerned about, there is some sex, but it's completely, you know, the screen goes black kind of thing. They don't really get into the graphic stuff, but it's just sweet. Reading it while also reading The Hating Game is just like a total mind screw for me. While they are on vacation, they are also playing a game of assassin where almost all the family plus friends and people in town who are friends also basically try to attack each other. They use squirt guns or water bottles or super soakers, and and Claire, Meredith's twin sister, used to always win these. Now Meredith wants to win it, so you got her coping with the death of her twin sister, a new romance, and trying to win this in honor of her sister. I would say probably the only thing I didn't like about this is Meredith's friend, who was a townie. I believe her name was Lilu. I believe that's correct. She was kind of as Xander on Buffy the Vampire Slayer would say, kind of a bitka. Um, I could understand some of her problems with Meredith if those problems weren't a result of Meredith coping with her twin's death. I thought that was a little bit insensitive on her part, and it just didn't work well. So I did have a problem with that. I try not to be super spoilery in these types of things, but I will say that okay, these romance novels, you know that the couples are going to end up together. So the couple ends up together. They make it seem like not only does the couple get together, but they're going to stay together. I don't know that this is one of those relationships where the couple is going to stay together. That's how it ends in the book. I just think it's when you get like the 5th epilogue after the book ends, I think they may still be friends, but I don't know that they'll still be a couple. So I didn't necessarily buy the pushing of that as like this is romance that's going to be forever. That's kind of what you want in these books. You don't want they lived happily ever after. Oh, but then they went through this, and then somebody did this, and you want you want they lived happily ever after, and that's what this gives you. Like I said, I just personally don't know if that's true. I don't. There's nothing wrong with this couple at all. They work. I just don't know if they will continue to work. I gave this one a 3.5. Like I said, I had a lot of issues with the friend, and that's a lot of it. It was a sweet book. If you're looking for a young adult romance, that this is the one for you. 3.5 is not a bad score. So, okay, the hating game. Lucy and Joshua are co-workers. They don't like each other. Lucy is a very tiny, itsy bitsy woman, and Joshua is a huge, tall man with muscles everywhere, muscles on his muscles. He's like a brick wall. But what we find out is that Joshua doesn't really hate Lucy. He really likes Lucy. He just doesn't know how to show it. This man is a walking red flag. There's so much wrong with this book. So much wrong. It's not written horribly, although I could honestly do without hearing about the clothes that Joshua wears, because that's a lot. Joshua is a disappointment to his father, and Joshua lets that affect all of his life. Well, I talked previously about the Summer of Broken Rules, where I don't know that after the book that the couple would remain together. I'm going to tell you, after the end of this book, there's going to be an article in the local paper about two bodies found in an apartment, one from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and the other one wasn't self-inflicted. I truly believe that Joshua is a horrible person. He should not be anybody's boyfriend. I feel if you need to experience the hating game, watch the movie. The movie is very true to the book, except Joshua is played by, I can't remember the guy's name. Uh, I know Lucy Hale plays Lucy. Austin Stowell, I believe, something like that. He makes Joshua seem human. The book does not make Joshua seem human. The book makes Joshua seem like, but deep down he really loves me, just come into life in human form. This was a bad book. I mentioned before, I know there's a thing about the tiny woman and the huge man trope in romance novels, and it's definitely on display here. I don't like it. I don't like what it seems to signify. It's okay for anybody, man or woman, to enjoy the feeling of protection, but it doesn't seem like protection. It feels like possession, and it's just icky. And he's definitely very possessive. It's just how he treats other people for working with Lucy. So I gave that 1.5 stars. And spoiler alert, it's not the worst book I read for this. Then I read Beach Read by Emily Henry. Beach Read, I believe, is the first adult book that Emily Henry wrote. She has previously written, I believe, young adult books, possibly children. I'm not positive. I just know she has written other stuff that wasn't for adults. It's about two authors, and I did not get this until I actually wrote it down, but their names are Augustus Everett and January Edwards. So January and August, kind of opposite sides of the seasons. January is a romance writer, and Augustus, Gus, writes literary fiction, seems to be fairly dystopian type of stuff. January's father died and left a house to her. The house where it seems that he was cheating on his wife, January's mother, with. So January's coping with that. And also, it turns out next door to her, coincidence, is Gus. And they end up challenging each other to write in their genre. So Gus is supposed to be writing romance, and January is supposed to be writing dystopian literary fiction. I enjoyed this. I liked the whole family situation. January going through discovering about her father, and also her mother had gone through cancer scare, and just her trying to figure out what she thought versus what was, and if what actually was exactly what she thought it was. That all works. Gus has family there, and kind of the kooky bookstore owner lady, and she's fun. I don't think that there's really anything that doesn't work in here. I think I enjoy Book Lovers just maybe a little bit more, but I think Beach Read may actually be better written. It, for me, favorite and best aren't always the same thing. I think the best book of the two is Beach Read, but my favorite is Book Lovers. I will also give this one a 4.5 stars. Also, they went to college together, and the one thing I didn't dislike it, but it's a apparently a romance thing and somewhat an Emily Henry thing, is like, oh, the one character comes across as cold and distant, and she doesn't think he likes her, but he's actually really attracted to her. He's just not able to verbalize it in a good way. It was fine here. I could see getting tired of that, especially in the hands of lesser writers. It was not an issue here because I think Emily Henry is actually a very good writer. So then I read the most recent book by Emily Henry, Happy Place. Happy Place is about Harriet and Wynne. They've been a couple for a very long time, but then they break up. Wynne breaks them up. Harriet doesn't fully understand why, but they have a close knit group of friends, and they don't tell their friends. So what ends up happening is they get together at one of the friends' father's house, and Harriet's there, but Wynne can't make it. But then Wynne does make it, and they're forced to be in the same room together, sharing the same bedroom. And it's all that they're still attracted to each other, and it just doesn't work as well as the other Emily Henry books. One, because the problem I brought up before, communicate, just talk to each other. There was a lot of forced reasoning why these people weren't sharing their thoughts and emotions, not only just between this couple, but the entire friend group. Harriet and Wynne aren't the only ones keeping secrets, and there's breaking of privacy, which just kind of gets glossed over, but it I think fairly bad, especially with close friends. I will just say, like I said, I try not to spoil too much, but it turns out, and if you don't want to know, skip ahead a couple minutes. It turns out that some of the friends do know that they're broken up, and they actually arrange this to try to force them together, which is a nice thought when you take out the human component, but it's utter BS when you don't know what's going on with these friends, and just forcing them together. And also in part, I think a little vengeance for not telling you. It's like these are people who are like the best of friends, and it just doesn't come across in the book. And it's a disappointment after reading the other three Emily Henry books. I gave this one 3 stars out of 5. It I could see reading the other Emily Henry books. I don't think I'll read this one again. I don't think it was plotted well enough, and I think it comes across that the two of them probably shouldn't be together, and the whole friend group probably should break up. It wasn't the worst book I read, but it was probably the biggest disappointment of the romance novels I read, because I was expecting so much more based on my previous Emily Henry books. Then I read Read Between the Lines by Rachel Lacey. It is a lesbian romance, basically an homage to You've Got Mail. Two women are communicating back and forth. One is a bookstore owner, one is a writer, but she's writing under a pseudonym. She also happens to be working uh, with her father's real estate company, basically, which owns the bookstore. So Rosie, the bookstore owner, gets an eviction notice because her building's going to be torn down by Jane, the writer, her family business. And of course, they don't know that they're communicating with each other. So Jane and Rosie meet, and Jane comes across as very businesslike, a little bit cold, and Rosie is understandably upset at what's happening to her business, which her mother ran it before her, so it's been around a while. Bree, the pseudonym, is communicating with Rosie. Again, they don't know who each other are, is being very supportive. So they decide to meet up. And of course, Rosie is at this bar, and who comes in? But Jane. And she's very upset seeing Jane. And Jane sees by how Rosie is waiting for somebody, and also some of the things she is wearing that she described to Bree, she realizes, oh, Rosie is the woman that she's been communicating with. I do like that they don't force the whole one person knows who the other person is kind of thing. They both know who each other is fairly shortly in the novel. I like the whole romance part of it. My big issues with this book are mainly the writing. The author doesn't appear to be very comfortable with letting stuff be shown. She has to tell us. She can't let the characters show us through their actions what they're thinking. She just tells us what they're thinking. And the dialogue is not completely natural. I just feel like this is a very good story that's just brought down by the writing. The writing's not horrible. It's amateurish. That's what it comes across as. I think that this could have been like up there with some of the Emily Henry books, but the writing just held it down a little. That's why I'm going to give it a 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed the story. I Yeah, it's a You've Got Mail shop around the corner, which You've Got Mail was kind of a remake of that vibe to it, and it's quite open with it, but it's likable. And there's a dog. Dogs always help. Cats always help, but cats don't work for romances really because they're cats. They're lone warriors, right, Wash? So I don't know how much people care about this, but there's some minor sex in this, nothing too graphic. And the only reason I bring that up is because the next book is not minor. The next book is Double Pucked by Lauren Blakely. It is about a woman named Trina whose boyfriend, she discovers, cheated on her. She decides to take vengeance by taking tickets to meet his favorite hockey players and use them herself. Basically, what she was going to do is just take pictures of her, hanging out with them and show them to him as a little act of vengeance. It turns out that she ends up doing a lot more with them than hanging out and playing pool. There's a lot of sex in this. A lot of sex. A lot of sex. The two hockey players, Chase and Riker, are on different hockey teams, but they are friends. They played hockey together when they were kids. They had a girl come in between them before because Chase got with the girl that Riker was with, but he didn't know that she was with Riker. She was apparently a podcaster, was doing an experiment, giving different guys different names and getting with them. So they made a pact not to let a woman get in between them again, except they let Trina get in between them, except it's in a more literal fashion. I guess it's a throuple that they end up being together. I don't fully, because when I think of throuple, I think that like all three are together sexually, but I guess that's not necessarily the case where she is with him and with him, but they're not with each other. Honestly, I expected just from the title of the book, and I decided, okay, it's on Kindle Unlimited. Sure, what the hell? I picked it up and I read it. I was like, oh, this is gonna be ridiculous. And again, I'll mention there's a lot of sex, and written sex gets to be a little repetitious. To me, it's kind of like NASCAR racing. Would I love to be on the track racing? Sure, that sounds like it might be fun. Do I want to watch it? Do I want to read about the sex and the different names for body parts? It gets a little repetitious. But honestly, the story around the sex is actually pretty good. It was a lot more than I was expecting. I liked the book, and the author Lauren Blakely actually made the relationship about more than the sex. I expected this to be I expected this to be the worst book I read, and it was not. It was actually pretty good. I gave this one 3.5 stars. Uh, it if you like reading about sex, this is definitely one for you. But if you are okay with sex and you like to read a fairly I guess good novel about uh, relationships, it also works. So then I went to Love at First Set by Jennifer Dugan, which is another lesbian romance about a gym manager who ends up talking the daughter of the gym owners out of getting married. She doesn't know that it's the daughter, and she just sees a woman crying upset at this wedding that she's going to with her best friend, who happens to be the daughter's brother. So she ends up talking her into making a decision she should have done anyways in deciding not to get married. Lizzie, the gym manager, is very attracted to Kara. Kara is bisexual, but hasn't really explored that because that would be a disappointment to her parents, apparently. Although her brother James is gay, and they end up getting together. Lizzie has a lot of self doubt, isn't willing to put herself out there. A lot of the problems I have with this book had to do with truly awful parents on both sides. I don't think James is a particularly good friend, at least until the end of the novel, but he's a user. He comes across as a user. And I think that's part of what brings me down in this novel. The relationship between Lizzie and Kara, especially once they finally get together, is nice and sweet. Again, I don't know if it's one of those relationships that I see lasting past the end of the book. I think that the teenagers in the Summer of Broken Rules have a better chance of lasting than this couple. It's nice that they get together. Well, I won't spoil that part, but they end up together at the end. You know this. I don't think it works as well. I gave it a 3 stars out of 5. I have a lot of problems with friends who aren't good friends, and we will get to that again later. The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. Uh, this is about a woman who had an OnlyFans account, who had a very supportive fan who she actually was going to meet, but they didn't meet, and she deactivated her account. But she's been laid off, and she's looking for a job because she's going to school and she needs something to pay for it, and she applies for a job as a nanny with an executive chef, and they're both like really attracted to each other. And it's no spoiler since it kind of lets you know he's actually the guy who was she was talking to on OnlyFans. It's a lot of red flags on the surface. If this wasn't a novel, if this was real life, this would seem very, very bad. But if you put aside your suspension of disbelief there, it's very. I don't know. I don't know if it's very good, but it is readable, and it makes you want to keep reading. There, there's the mother sister, because the mother has passed away. The mother sister who wants to take uh, custody of the child. There's a cantankerous old woman neighbor who acts as the mother figure because Cassie's parents aren't really involved in her life. The relationship is wrong. But if you can get past the relationship being wrong, it's a decent read. If I had any friend like this in either side of this in real life, I would say get out of this quickly. But if you're able to get past that, it's fine. There is sex. There's not a sex for quite a while, and then apparently they decide to make up for it. Just lots and lots of sex. And honestly, what I was going through that entire time is like, oh God, don't let the kid walk in on this. Don't let the kid. And the kid doesn't walk in on it. But you know, even if I wanted to read about the sex, I was just worried about this kid walking in. So I gave that one a 3 stars out of 5. If you're into romances, it's a perfect like beach read. It's something that you can digest quickly and be done with quickly, and it gives you a good time. It doesn't stress your brain too much, and then you can move on. Love Unexpected by Jenny Proctor. About a girl who works at a YouTube company. She is in love with the YouTube star Isaac. She has anxiety, so she is really unable to talk to Isaac. I kind of, empathize with Rosie because I've been like that where I'm just saying stupid stuff out of my mouth, and it's like, why won't I just stop? So she sends him a DM as Anna. Her actual name is Anna Rose. Can't remember her last name, but she goes by Rosie. So she sends it as Anna on an old Instagram account, I believe. And as Anna, she starts talking back and forth with Isaac. And Isaac decides to go meet Anna in Kansas, where Anna lives, where Rosie used to live. They take a road trip, Isaac and Rosie and Tyler, the cameraman. And of course, Rosie realizes she has to tell Isaac it's actually her at some point. And it's very sweet. And I don't mean sweet in a bad way. I know it probably comes across as a bad way, but it's very sweet. And especially after reading all the sexcapades of the last couple of books, there's no sex in this book that I remember, but it just comes across very sweet. I like when writers are able to talk about mental health and do it fairly well, and Proctor does that pretty well. It wasn't an amazing book, but it was a fairly nice book. And I believe there are three other books kind of in the series. I know one of them actually has to do with Tyler, the cameraman. So I guess it's about different characters in this YouTube company. I think I don't know, but I definitely know one of them is about Tyler. And it was just very sweet. I really liked Rosie. I like that Isaac wasn't perfect. He was far from perfect because kind of the whole being on YouTube, it's like, well, do you do stuff for you as a person or you do stuff as a YouTube star? And I like that. There are a lot of side characters, but not many of them particularly stand out that well, except for perhaps Tyler and a couple of the co-workers at the company. So yeah, I gave that one 3.5 stars. Okay, I started off so great with Kiss Her Once for Me and Book Lovers and People We Meet on Vacation. We get to Something Fabulous by Alexis Hall. It is a gay romance. It is set sometime in the past because one of the characters is a duke. They ride horses. Apparently, homosexual relationships are very frowned on, but almost everybody in the book is in some type of homosexual relationship except for the Duke. The Duke is Valentine. Valentine is a bit officious. He insists that he be called Your Grace. He's kind of a stick in the mud, perhaps a little bit of a prude. He's not a very passionate person. He proposes to Belle, who his father and her father had felt the two of them should be married a long time ago. So he does it because he sees it as a duty. She doesn't take it well. There, honestly, there was nothing wrong with the proposal. It wasn't like the most beautiful proposal ever, but it was fine. Belle is a pain in the ass. Huge pain in the ass. Psycho. Bonnie, Belle's twin brother, wakes up Valentine the next day and says she has run away and they need to go get her. And they chase after her and they find her, and then she runs away again and they chase after her and find her. And everybody talks crap about Valentine. Valentine gets tied up. Bonnie could get him untied if he just admitted he was a duke, but he won't do it because he's throwing a hissy fit. He gets locked in a cellar. He isn't fed. Everybody insults him, tells him he's wrong. Valentine, who understands that homosexual relationships are frowned upon, doesn't necessarily judge other people for homosexual relationships, but it feels like everybody judges him for everything he does, but he can't judge anybody. And he gets shot too. Of course, he gets shot by Belle. And what does Valentine do all through this novel? He apologizes and apologizes and apologizes, and just gets crapped on. This was an awful book. This book sucked. I don't know what else to say about it. It was pure crap. Bonnie and Valentine end up together. There's nothing that this book shows me that Bonnie really cares for Valentine. Belle, who is the person who shot Valentine, but it's okay because she was scared, never apologizes for anything to him. I hated almost every character in here. My favorite character in this book was Valentine. And Valentine in most books would be the comic relief, stuffy Duke who just. But in this one, he's a hero, except he gets all the tragedy coming towards him, and nobody, not even his own mother, treats him like a human. I gave this a 1 star out of 5. Uh, I'm waiting for my daughter Robin to read it because I read it because it was one of the books that she had on her to read list, and I want to see what she says because I need to know if I need to disown her. I'm not going to disown her, but I may get her fewer Christmas presents based on what she thinks. Then I read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, figure skater, hockey player in college. Nate and Anastasia, they don't get along at first because Nate lies to her. He's protecting a teammate, but she doesn't care for him, kind of treats him a little bit crappily for a while, and then basically goads him into having oral sex with her. I don't know. It was the very definition of eh. I mean, the romance was fine. It was one of those ones where, again, do I think this couple's going to be a couple after the end of the book? No, which is sad considering the end of the book. I mean, they're by the end of the book, they're definitely on that road to. Ooh, that hurt. You hurt me, dude. Don't hurt me. Okay. Um, at the end of the book, they're together. There's a proposal. There's other stuff. Uh, honestly, my main problem. Okay, I have a couple of main problems with this. One, uh, she's a very strong-willed woman, but she gets like psychologically abused by her skating partner. And it's not like the skating partner is her boyfriend from high school who she skated with like all through high school and stayed with him even though she was a much better skater than he was. Her current skating partner she's only been with 3 years. They're friends. I don't know why, but there's no relationship there. But he treats her like crap. Uh, it basically forces her into an eating disorder, and he's just a douchebag. And he blames Nate for something, which is easily disproven if the coaches, both the figure skating and the hockey, had actually done their jobs, which they don't. They're horrible coaches. And then the other main problem I have is with the friends. Nate is the captain of the hockey team. I think that kind of has a level of respect that perhaps he should be shown. And Nate is friends with all these people. But there's no moment in this book where any of these people show friendship towards Nate. And that includes one character who's been friends with him since they were kids together. They're fairly mean to him, and I mean, they insult him, but friends insult each other. But there's no counterbalance. There's nothing that shows, oh yeah, they care for Nate. Not one thing that shows that. So, and there's Nate has a father who's a douche. There's lots of douches in this book. And they have a scene, and I don't know what purpose it serves. There's This book's like 420 pages long, and I feel like not a lot happened. I feel like this book could have been cut in half, and I wouldn't have lost a thing. It was eh. That was it. Was it? It was eh. The only thing I'm sad about is that this is the book I ended the whole romance series on. I would have been sadder if I ended with something fabulous. That I might not have filmed this video. Overall, if you take out the hating game, something fabulous, and Icebreaker, which I only read because I was thinking the cutting edge, which I love. But if you took out those three books, I actually had a good experience with romance novels. I'm definitely taking a break from romance novels because I will tell you, I tried to read, I tried to listen to one on Audible called Accidental Tryst. Can't remember the author's name, but I listened for 3 minutes and 22 seconds, and I just went out. It was horrible. And I could see another book like The Hating Game, and I just couldn't take it. So I'm probably going to stay away from romance novels for a while, but I will definitely probably pick up like the next Emily Henry book that comes out. Some of these authors I might read again. I would like to see who was it? Rachel Lacey, who wrote Read Between the Lines. I would like to see as she progresses as a writer some of her stories because I think she has the foundation. She just needs to hone her skills, and I think it will be really good. Obviously, anytime Alison Cochrun writes a book, I will be reading it. The two I've read have been amazing. So, Sally Thorne, I don't know. I mean, the writing wasn't bad, but Joshua Templeton was a horrible character. So, I don't. I may come back to her at some point, but she's gonna have to earn it. Uh, K.L. Walther, The Summer of Broken Rules. Uh, I believe it's a she. I assume. If she writes another book or she has other books out there, I may check them out. Won't be in a rush to do so, but I may pick up another Lauren Blakely book because I was going into double puck, going, oh, this was going to be one of those ones that are so bad it's good kind of thing. It's like, oh no, it's actually pretty good. It's just a lot of sex, and I don't mind a lot of sex, but it's just kind of like, I mean, how many words for penis do you need? But I will check that again. I don't know if in Lana Ferguson, the nanny. I don't know. Um, I enjoyed reading it, but I was like, oh, this is not good in a real world setting. I will probably pick up the Jenny Proctor books at some point. Those are like those and the K.L. Walther book are like palate cleansers. If I ever read a book that I'm just like, ugh, that may be a book I just read. It's going to be a quick read, and it's just going to be like, huh. Again, romance novels are not books that I generally read, but I for the most part enjoyed it. For the ones I didn't enjoy, I really didn't enjoy it. But I think I found some new authors to read, and I will probably, after a break, we're taking a break, Ross and Rachel, I will probably get back into the romance world once again. Maybe I will find one to read along while I watch my Hallmark Christmas movies in about 5 months or so. Less than 5 months. They start pretty early. All right. Thank you for watching this extremely long video on One Eye on the Page. If you like it, please like and subscribe. And I will talk to you next time.